Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Fit Talk Pulling Bits and Pins with your host, Benny G. We're back after a week break with a special guest. And before we get there, follow, like, subscribe, every each podcast, and on social media platforms. Not TikTok because that's an unbeatable for sure, but everywhere else, I'm pretty snazzy on it. Hit the like, follow, or subscribe. DM me. Pitch up the purchases you break. I appreciate it. If not, listen to it anyways. Good couch. Today we got a special guest by the name of Abraham Thompson. I would say I'm gonna call him, if that's okay. Straight.
Fine.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I want you to know that the beard is a good look for you. Too bad you didn't have a no shade chair while you were in. You would have said too good look for you, dog. But anyways, go ahead and share a little bit about yourself, and then where you been at, what you doing now, what duty stations you got under your belt, things like that.
Okay. Well, thanks Israel for having me on here, or Gunny G. Appreciate you reaching out to me and inviting me to be on the podcast. So as far as who I am, Abraham Thompson, served in the Marine Corps. In totality, it'll be 24 years. Worked through all facets of the Marine Corps, but I primarily came in as a ground communication individual. And then from there, found a way to kind of turn my career into, or something that I like doing as far as serving, into a career, and decided to go the first sergeant route just based off of my personal beliefs and being a part of the organization and what it was doing for me and what it has done for me. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I had a great life in the Marine Corps. Can't complain about it.
Let's talk. Okay. Do me a favor, Avery, if you can drop the camera just a little bit down. There it is, right there. That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. All right. So, hey, can you tell the listeners? Don't worry, I have that on the deal. Can you tell the listeners where we met at, and what duty station we're at, what unit?
Okay, so we met, if I remember correctly, somewhere around 2022, 23-ish. It had to be 2022 or 2021 actually. In Hawaii, serving with Marine Corps Base Hawaii. You came in after kind of some turnover in the IPAC, if I remember correctly, and man, you and I had another gunny come in right around the same time, but I think we kind of just clicked. I know there was times I would reach out to you it was kind of hard getting things done through that particular section, and I know there was times when I would reach out to you directly, maybe not necessarily the way to do things, but I felt like if I needed support from you in things that didn't detract from the function of the base too much, you would always help me out. And I did not do that to kind of undermine anybody, but the balance of being a Marine and functioning in your MOS and doing things that the institution required was always the hard part with just any unit, any unit that you go a part of. There were organizational responsibilities, and then there were occupational responsibilities, and that's where a lot of people kind of struggled with accepting, or the senior leadership didn't do a good job of explaining the importance of the why. But yeah, we met in Hawaii, and that was a interesting time, but I appreciated that experience because I got to see the installation side of the house. As I stated earlier, I kind of tailored my career to be multifaceted, so the installation side was never a portion that I looked at. However, it allowed me to see the business side of the Marine Corps And another place that I also saw that was on recruiting duty, seeing the business side of the Marine Corps. But it's always good to see those peeks behind the curtain. So I think that answers your
That's
question if
good.
I didn't go off too much
It
on a
is.
tangent.
No, that's good. That's good. It's some Marines have an issue with organizational and occupational. They're kind of separate, and it's kind of it's co-aligned to make mission and to meet the
Yep,
operational goals of the commander's intent.
correct.
So, but either way, that's a good point. That's a good point because I know IPACians, right? The Marines, officers of the IPAC, they do this sometimes, right?
Yeah,
And that's not necessarily a good thing because we got to get rid of this and put back this to meet whatever the mission of the Marine Corps is, right? I
yeah.
do agree with you there. Before we get there, though, let's talk about some of the challenges you faced at the duty station. I know that specifically after Hawaii, but from Hawaii going on to retirement, what got you to that point, and what challenges did you face there?
Okay, so after Hawaii, ended up going back to 1st Marine Division, and I had served in the division before, and my previous experience in division kind of left me feeling like I could have done more. I won't say I was a fish out of water, but I don't think I didn't get like all the combat experience that I wanted. I didn't necessarily, get to do a lot of the things that I personally wanted to do. So I decided to go back to the division. And when I had the opportunity, I reached out to the monitor, ended up back in 1st Marine Division, and ended up with a independent battalion, which my previous experience also with 1st Marine Division was at an independent battalion. So I did time with tracks back in the early 2000s, and then I also ended up with Combat Engineer Battalion. Now, as far as my reasoning for getting out, when I got to this unit, I started noticing back my previous statement when I said that there's institutional requirements and there's occupational or organizational requirements and occupational requirements. And I felt like there was a serious gap between those two things. My biggest flaw to this day is I am not good at sugarcoating things. If I see something that isn't the way it is, I will let you know. I will let you know. I've never been the type of person to be able to smooth things over when if you ask me a question, I will give you the unfiltered truth. So, through many conversations with my senior leadership, and to include my sergeant major and my commanding officer, it came off as I was complaining, right? And I understand that. But I also felt like I was not getting the support that I needed to make those changes in my own company and around the battalion. Amongst also that, I felt like there was a gap in who was being held accountable for the deficiency. And it always felt like it was a large percentage of the time it was the first sergeant. And so, we're trying to bridge the gap of, hey, being a Marine is not just an occupation, it is a lifestyle. Trying to understand the younger generation and how to help them to understand that, so you could buy the commitment, continue the service after the fail, we called it in recruiting duty, right? So to, hey, help keep them continuing the transformation. Now, the Marine Corps, you'll see it every few years, they try to find a way to bridge that gap. Now it's the, barracks crisis. Before it was kind of the no shaving and all that. You've seen them try to go through these generational changes to be more accommodating. But I still have a belief that we're a warfighting organization. My leadership at the time, like I said, I feel like I wasn't getting the support. Matter of fact, the individual that probably drove me the most to retire, he was more about, you know, making people happy and, you know, shaking hands. And he's a real people person. He was a real people person. But being a people person didn't always get the job done. It didn't let somebody know when they were deficient, right? And I will only speak on my experience. The primary reason why I knew I was going to retire, I sat down multiple times with my sergeant major and I had conversations and I said, where am I deficient? What am I not doing well? What am I, what are my areas to improve? Hey, on numerous occasions, hey man, just keep doing what you're doing and you're doing fine. Everything's okay. And I'm like, okay, so I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Then there became an incident happened. My boss, the night before, we were supposed to go to Bridgeport. 113 Marines were supposed to go to Bridgeport. 112 went up to Bridgeport for cold weather training. That's an unusual training event for an entire engineer company, first off. So normally they'll send a platoon, squad, not an entire company. So we were doing something new and different. Now, again, my boss gets relieved that I'm talking hours. At 1900, he calls me the night before we were supposed to leave at 04 in the next morning. Right? Calls me, says, hey, I'm not going to Bridgeport. I just got relieved. Said, okay. The sergeant major calls me, the commander calls me and says, hey, we're kind of concerned. Actually, I stand corrected. They didn't call me. They met us at the transport spot the next morning, talked to me, hey, really need you to hold the company together, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't express any concerns in my ability to motivate, lead the Marines, and the executive officer now is the company commander. I didn't tell you this before, so some of this might, sorry, right?
That's all right.
So me and the executive officer, fantastic guy, fantastic relationship, still talk to him to this day, think he's going to be a commanding general. We go to Bridgeport, 2-week training package, absolutely kill it. Before, backstory on Bridgeport, there was a previous unit that went up there and had over 100 cold-related injuries, right? We went up, executed flawlessly. The only issues we ran into were vehicles breaking down. No fault of our own, but they broke down, right? So we executed the training flawlessly. When we needed to make adjustments, we made adjustments. The battalion CO and the sergeant major came out there, saw us training, and had nothing but praises for us. So we get back from Bridgeport, and I'm like, this went well. Everybody is happy with our company. When I say we are the forefront of the battalion, we're doing everything right. Everybody is like, oh my goodness, we need to be able to compete with this company. Time comes for the fit rep discussion. So we start talking about who's going to do who's fit rep. We get a new company commander at this point. My sergeant major, my new company commander, my XO, and the battalion XO all sit in the room and we're discussing who's going to do who's fit reps because obviously the company commander had gotten relieved. Go around the table, everybody talks, yada, yada, yada. Everybody's figured out. And then it comes to me. And, there's a discussion and they said, well, who's going to do your fit rep? And the XO says, the battalion XO says, I'll do his fit rep because we want to make sure he gets a fair evaluation. Then follows that up with words of, quote, I have a robust profile. I will make sure you are competitive for promotion. That's what she says to me. So I have no concern of not having a good report. There's no indication of any issue. And again, during this time, I'm also talking to the sergeant major asking, hey, what do I need to do to improve? What do I need to do to improve? Are there times I'm stressed and worried about things? Yeah, but that comes with the job, right? But I'm also frustrated with some of the lack of discipline I see around the battalion and the people that are getting held accountable, that, we continue to get held accountable, but we're the only ones that are getting held accountable, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to make this sound like there was no, I have a role in this as well. I accept and I own that I have my own deficiencies that probably needed to be addressed. Well, not probably, they definitely needed to be addressed, right? Um, but I say all that to say the fit rep goes in the system. And now, mind you, I make it my job to be informed. I think it's fair to say, that if somebody tells me something, I'm going to research it and I'm going to make sure that I'm informed when I speak on something. So I didn't put two and two together, but the fit rep hits the system. I didn't look at it because I'm not necessarily one of those people that chases fit reps or what have you. But my sergeant major comes to me after maybe a couple days and says, just out of the blue, hey, me and the boss been talking, and we think you should write a letter to the board. Board's coming up in November. This is like July, August time frame, July, August, September time frame. Then from there, I'm like, huh? Why would I write a letter? I literally said to him, why would I write a letter to the board? This is, that would be to address a discrepancy. I have zero discrepancies in my record. I have no negative paperwork. I have no cause for concern. So I'm being led to believe that, I have an outstanding fit rep. So then my fit rep hits, and it's an 84. So when you talk about cumulative and relative value, I looked at the XO's profile. She's written 4 fit reps. She told me she had a robust profile, and she made me an 84 in a combat arms MOS. And this is the conversation I had with the sergeant major after the fit rep is, I was like, in a combat arms MOS, an 84 is a death sentence for a first sergeant. I am not competitive for promotion. And then he says to me, through much discussion, where I was like, explain to me where I failed. Explain to me where I failed. And he's like, oh, it's not just the number. And I said, bull crap, you know as well as I do, people look at that number. That is the first thing that they're going to be attracted to. It's not the comment. Okay, they're going to look at my profile and go, why did he get an 84 in a combat arms MOS in an independent battalion? And then he says to me, and this is when I knew I was done, well, you don't have the ability to man, it hit me so hard. He said, you don't have the ability to influence people. And I was just like, when did this come about? When did that come about? Right? Like, you explained to me, and I broke it down, like with receipts. I was like, explain to me when I don't have when was this determination made that I don't have the ability to influence people? And I was just like, you know what? In my mind, subconsciously, like, I just said, like, at that moment, like, yep, that is when I know I am no longer of value to the institution. If my senior leadership, the person that's supposed to be mentoring me and guiding me, told me that I don't have the ability to influence people, I can only imagine what the other Marines think, right? And then I started it. So that hit me. I didn't necessarily drop my paperwork at that time, but then I started questioning. I found myself driving to work and questioning, like, what am I going to do today? And what is it going to have any value? Is it going to have any impact? Are the Marines going to see me as somebody that they want to be like? And as I started having more and more of those days, I got a 30-minute drive to work. I just started telling my wife. I found myself going home and telling my wife more and more, hey, I'm done. I want to retire. And she's like, stick around for one more look, stick around, it's just this unit. And there was just way too many days and times where I just started feeling like the Marines are seeing me, and they're seeing through the bull crap. Like, I can't fake motivation. I told you earlier, like, I can't fake it. I I motivate myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry. So
that's all right.
I'm sorry. I think I lost you for a second. So I motivate myself internally. I I told myself a long time ago, as a staff and field, whenever you walk through a doorway, you need to put a smile on your face and you need to be positive, driving towards the mission. You need to be motivating those Marines, because if you don't, how are they going to do it? And so
Yeah,
as that was happening, and that's why I said in the text, the end of the text, I couldn't be the duck anymore. I couldn't be, you know, the legs under the water, kicking like crazy, trying to stay afloat and acting like nothing on top, like I'm just coasting along. So I went in to my sergeant major. This was like September. Ironically, I think it was September 27th, which was the same day I went to MEP back in 1999. And I went in and I gave
yeah,
my sergeant major my paperwork, and he was like, "You sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yup." Like, not even a discussion. And he read through, and that was like, it was late in the week, and then by like the Tuesday the next week, I had my approved retirement dates. I sat on it for a few months, as you saw, and then in like Facebook, after the selections list came out, which I was still kind of hopeful for. I didn't get selected, and I was like, well, yep, hey, I can tell everybody now I'm retiring. Like, and then from there, I just started planning my transition. I had hip surgery in December, like something that I had hip issues even when I was in Hawaii. I had hip and back issues unaddressed since like man, I was doing my medical records like 2009. I was going to get seen for my hip. I had a torn labrum since 2009, and I got surgery for it in 2023, the end of 2023. So like,
wow,
check engine light was also on in the car for a long time, and I put those, this one little issue here came up, this one little issue here, and I put all those things on the back burner, and I just made the decision to start focusing on me, and that's what I've been doing. So yeah, that's how I
yeah.
decided to
I'd say
exit the Marine Corps. I don't have
that's
the ability to influence
that,
people.
that's rough. I'd say what, but so personally and professionally, man, it sounds like it did affect you a little bit. Can you tell me, maybe put something tangible on it, personally and professionally? How did it affect your family at home? Obviously you touched on it a little bit about professionally, like, hey, I can't fake it, so I make it. This is what it is. Okay, put something on there so that the listeners, hey, this is what's going on.
So personally, the decision to retire, I think it scared me initially. It scared me because this was all I knew since 18, and I was, it's like buying an Apple product. I bought one Apple product, bought another one. I was tied into the machine, and I,
Mm.
it was, I was heavily dependent on the Marine Corps being my identity. It was heavy. I was heavily dependent on that, because once you exit, nobody knows you're First Sergeant Thompson. No one cares. No one cares, right? Like, dude, once I leave the Marine Corps, it'll be 5 minutes before somebody goes, "What was his name again?" Man, that guy. He used to run real fast. Oh man, he was, whatever they say about you. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. When your name drops off that morning report, that's it. That's it. So I was heavily dependent on the Marine Corps being my identity. And I was scared about like just doing it without having a plan. But once I submitted my paperwork, man, I that fear went away, and I became focused on just transitioning out the Marine Corps, and that was it. Like, the only worry I have right now, I'm like, man, the economy is terrible to buy a house. That's it. That's my only worry. Like, financially, we're doing okay. I have a retirement pension, which, most companies don't do nowadays. 401k is the way everybody's going, even with the blended retirement system. The Marine Corps, the military's going that way. So, luckily I'm part of the high three, the old retirement policy. So it, that the personal piece was just like, man, who am I going to be without the Marine Corps? And
Yeah.
I kind of found my track where I'm like, okay, well, what do I like to do? I like technology. I'm interested in Tesla as a company. I also like, because of the Marine Corps, I got really interested in like law and how it's developed and how policies are created. I always considered that one of my strong points, especially, as bad as it sounds, whenever it came to, NJP, I always made sure that the Marines were adjudicated under the proper policies. That is that is a serious deficiency in the Marine Corps in the 89-99 world. We're so quick to blanket statement charge people. And when you read into these like policies of how charges, what the charges and what the statutes are, Marines can fight those all day, every day, because most times it's something sidetrack, something that I've noticed, Marines aren't necessarily found not guilty because they're not guilty. Usually it's a procedural issue why Marines or individuals beat cases. And that's what a lot of young Marines don't understand. It's like, you'll hear all these crazy cases that happen, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but yeah, procedural issues are the problem. And it starts at the 89-99 level when they develop these charges and they don't understand it. Anyways, I got interested in law, so that's why I've decided I want to apply to law school. San Diego, UC San Diego. UC San Diego is a yellow ribbon program, so I'm going to try and apply to law school. Being a veteran helps pay for it, et cetera, et cetera. So apply to Tesla, work in human resources is something that translates well based off of my experiences in the Marine Corps. Believe it or not, human resources, you look at Tesla's their career job description, their career page when it comes to their associates, everything I learned in recruiting duty. Everything that you learn on recruiting duty is exactly what they're asking for, outside of having a license to sell vehicles. That's it. Like a large percentage of their job description as a whole in any kind of managerial or supervisory role, things we learned on recruiting duty. And I know you were a recruiter. So yeah, it's crazy. So that's what kind of has been my driving force, rediscovering myself, spending time with my family, taking my kids to school, going to their soccer games or football games. Those are the things that once I submitted my paperwork, kind of the fear left. Still have some rediscovering of me to do. Like, I gave up a lot of hobbies that can't really play sports anymore because, check engine light still on. But yeah, that was the personal side as far as me as an individual. As far as my family goes, I was definitely a lot less high strung. I'm very demanding in uniform and out of uniform. So not having to have that demanding attitude, like a large percentage of my day, I react differently and I wind down a lot easier from things. And now, I say a lot to my family, or even not to my family necessarily, but to people in general. When when they get high strung about stuff, I'm like, hey, nobody's shooting at us. Calm down. Nobody's shooting at us. So,
That's funny, man. I'll tell you what. Uh, yeah, you from the very get go, right, from recruit training all the way till you get out after 4, 8, 10, 12, whatever it is, we breed anxiety. The Marine Corps does, and there's no. It's like you can't. It just stays that way,
yep.
right? And we stay so high strung, high tempo, like, and so everything that we do is that way. And so because of it, it causes stress, anxiety, depression. Short fused attitudes, right? Hey, for me too as well. I had a discussion with my wife this morning, and it was just like, you know what? You hit the nail on the coffin. Like, high strung for a reason, and the Marine Corps has its play. I'm not saying it's 100% it, but it has its play on how I live and how you were living. I want to touch on it before, I don't know, take too much of your time. I know you're a family man, and I appreciate that, because family's, for God, family is important to me. I'm sure family is important to you. You got to navigate difficulties, you got to navigate stress, anxiety while you're in, and even in a transition. And can you, one last, just say for now for everybody, tell them, you spoke about they don't quit the job, they quit the manager, right? And talk about, where the specific strategies, support systems, or lessons that you learned on your way out, as one last safe round for those, those listeners. Hey, this is what you need. Take this, put it in your toolbox, and I promise you'll be successful.
Okay. So the people quit their managers, they don't quit the organizations. That's something I've been learning, going through my HR programming. And that's 100% true. First of all, the Marine Corps only tries to retain about 20% of first termers, right? And we're okay with the 80% going out, because most of them are short term, can't see the big picture future. Most of them, not all of them. And a lot of them are frustrated with their junior levels of leadership. We are not invested enough in educating the current junior levels of leadership. When I say that, I mean the corporals and sergeants. Okay. I think that we are trying to use the old school traditional educating individuals, but we're not really. The Marine Corps is moving at such a fast pace, trying to be combat ready. We're forgetting to educate them in how to be Marine, the lower level leadership. So you see a lot of mistakes happen at lower levels of leadership and in the junior staff NCO ranks as well, that should not be happening, but we're trying to right that ship. Haven't been trying to right that ship. I mean, look at the corporal's course curriculum. It's over 15 years old, if I remember right. Like it's old. They just put in
Wow.
like, I want to say a couple of years ago, they just put in maybe it was last year, they just put in the JPEG addendum to the curriculum. We've been on JPEG for 5 years, I can't remember how long, but it was just included last year or maybe the year before. So those are things I think the Marine Corps is lacking on. And for the listeners, if I could say any piece of advice as far as what's going to help you be successful in your career, I don't know if there's one answer, but I will tell you, educate yourself. Educate yourself on the institution that you belong to. Educate yourself on, leading, mentoring people, and be patient with where you're at. I have the luxury of saying that because I was able to, submit for retirement, but be patient with where you're at, because our leaders, we're all flawed. When I shouldn't say us as leaders, we're all flawed, right? There's not enough time in the day to do everything that the Marine Corps requires us to do. And not a lot of people are good at planning, strategizing, and executing. There are people that plan and execute, right? But they forget to strategize that plan to make it all encompassing. And you can't be all encompassing. You have to be able to adjust. I think we tend to tend to hear what we need to do, go do it, right? The reason that that's important is because when it comes to educating yourself, there's not a lot of time in the Marine Corps dedicated to that. And yeah, that was always my big thing. I never wanted to go out and say something wrong. I didn't want to sound uneducated. I didn't want to sound like I was just shooting from the hip, because the Marines see through that, right? So if you can spend time educating yourself and believe in the institution, believe in the organization, there is a purpose for the Marine Corps. There is a purpose for the Marine Corps. You just got to kind of wait out the old guard for it to be relevant and exposed to us again. Yeah.
For those listeners, I'm sure you'll come up with your own conclusions on those. Yeah, there are some old heads, man.
Yeah.
The saying goes, teaching out the old long tricks. Sometimes that's not the case, but I will say that to your point, education is important, right? In terms of what you do, how you do it, when you do it, right? It's especially as in that community itself. You don't want to be that one that just kind of shoots from the hip.
Yep.
Because Marines want honesty and transparency. I think anybody in general wants honesty, transparency, and for you taking the time to be honest about the catalyst that drove you to the Connects J. That transition it's healthy. It's healthy accountability in terms of we don't quit the organization, we quit the managers, and that's deep, because a lot of the times you're right. Those 4 years, 8-year guys that the Marine Corps wants to retain, they're not quitting because they don't like it. They don't like managerial skills that smart unit leader level type of individuals. So that's deep. If you're listening, go ahead. Yeah.
Can I give you one example on that? And this is when I really realized Marines were leaving the leadership, not the organization. Right? In the infantry, what they would do is, right, they do a workup for deployment. And then they come back, they deploy, they come back. After that happened, all leadership, officers, staff, and CO leave, except for usually the company first sergeant, right? And then then the gap is created, though. All platoon sergeants are gone, and then all platoon commanders are gone. You get a new XO, you get a new company commander. The only constant is the first sergeant and the corporal. Not a lot of sergeants, right? But all the corporals. Those corporals, their experience was, I had some knucklehead, freaking terrible leadership. All they did was yell at me, telling me I need to be better, right? The first sergeant is there trying to right the ship, trying to get them to understand. But that gap is so wide between the first sergeant and the lower level leadership. And then the junior Marines, they're like, man, all I got is this jerk corporal yelling at me this whole time. Why do I want to stay here? So majority of them get out. Then you start the workup again. You get some decent leadership. Staff NCOs come in, officers come in, and you're like, okay, it's solid. The ship's right. Do the workup, do the deployment. That leadership now leaves again. But the junior Marines now get promoted to corporal. And the dickhead corporal is now a sergeant, right? They may be there. Maybe, if they don't leave. But that young junior Marine that got promoted to corporal, all he knows how to do is be a dickhead corporal now, because the only consistency he had was the dickhead corporal, because the kind of good leadership that came in did a deployment and left, right? And then he gets promoted to sergeant, and then he leaves, and we start the cycle over again. And that's all in the infantry. Every year this happened. And then the Marines are like, man, the Marine Corps, us, the senior leadership, are like, I can't understand why these junior Marines don't know how to lead Marines. We literally tear away their leadership structure every 12 months in Hawaii and 18 months in on the state side in Conus. And I say that 12 to 18 months, but the staff NCOs and officers during that time, during the workup, what are they doing? They're not there the whole time. They're going to schools, they're going TAD, whatever. So the only consistency that these young leaders that we're supposed to be developing is they get their PME, resident PME, right? 3 weeks for corporal, 4 weeks for sergeant. They get some stability during the workup, and then we do the workup, do the deployment, rip away the leadership that they have, and then they fall back to what they know, the boot camp mentality, because that is the longest period of consistent leadership that they have ever had. That's it. Yelling at Marines, not standing, talking down to them, expecting freaking imposing will get the mission done, and not educating them. That's what we do. And then we're like, man, I can't understand why these Marines don't know how to lead. Every once in a while, you may get the anomaly of that one individual like, I'm going to be better. I'm going to invest in my future. I'm going to try and be a good leader. But those are so few and far between. But I just wanted to share that with you. That is my personal belief of how the cycle of leadership, how we continue to try and battle, trying to be better leaders. And it's an uphill battle, especially when we continue to tear the structure down. So I'm not yelling. I'm passionate about that.
There it is. That's what I was just gonna say, man. It sounds you have a passionate point of view, and too bad not too many people jump on that same bandwagon, because I do agree. I think as staff NCOs, officers, there's some disconnect with the junior Marines. We're always trying to bridge the gap. You know what I mean? That key token term. But I'll leave you with this. I was talking to my Uncle Nando, Master Vince Hernandez. He was out in Hawaii with us too.
I reached out to him.
He told me, there's to your point about quitting the organization and the managers, right? He was saying, there's 9 dumbasses in the room, don't be the 10th. And unfortunately, all 10 of them are the dumbasses. Unfortunately, that's how it goes. And if you're listening, you just, tune in. Thanks. Special guest to Abe, Thompson, Halen out of Cali. I appreciate your service to this country. It goes without said, thank you for your service. A long time's a long time. And, educate yourself, and now you're educating yourself. Invest into your family, invest into your relationships, and I appreciate your service, man. And I got you in my toolbox. And if you ever need anything, let me know. Ladies and gentlemen, this has it's been a pleasure, honor with Abe. This is Pit Talk, pulling the pits and the pins with your host, Billy G, and we out. Hey, I'm gonna eat you on the fly. We got the little grocery shop.
Okay, brother.
Let me know if you need anything. All right, dog.
Same here.
I'll talk to you soon. And iron sharpens iron. Now you let me know what you.
Hey, all right. Same here. I appreciate the opportunity, man. I know I go off on tangents. Probably can't cover everything about the Marine Corps and my own personal beliefs, but I really do appreciate the opportunity, man.
Absolutely. If you ever just want to come chop it up, like I said, iron sharpens iron. If you got stuff to get out of your chest, come on in. We'll talk about it. It's always a privilege and an honor to talk about to more senior enlisted, more senior in life, and just life goals. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Just come on. Let me know.
For sure, brother. For sure. All right. Take care, man.
I'll see you there.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.